Good afternoon, friends. Or should I? It's 1 o'clock, so I guess you can say it's like high noon, whatever you want to say. Anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about some misconception about this. I'll say it's a concept. To be more general, you can call it an entity or an angel or whatever, but this is about the aspect of Satan, right? So Satan sort of gets this big connotation of being the representation of all evil in the world, all of darkness, the Prince of Darkness, whatever you want to call him. And I want to talk a little bit about the misconceptions surrounding that, especially on a biblical perspective. So the reason why I want to talk is predominantly like a Christian concept of the devil being the Prince of Darkness, and it's a very Christian sort of concept to sort of reject everything about the devil or Satan specifically. I'll refer to it as Satan from now on, which I'm not exactly sure where it originates from. And it kind of perplexes me because I've read through the entire Bible and there's no indication that Satan is I guess I could say he is an incarnation of evil, but there is no concept that he is sort of an antagonist towards God. And at the same time, I'm not really sure where this connotation to him and Lucifer falls under. I'm not really familiar with the story of Lucifer, so I won't really get into that because we're talking specifically about Satan. And from my perspective, Satan is the angel of death, so to speak. It's the angel of hardship and temptation and a lot of these other things, but nowhere is he referred to as this antagonist towards the highest good, which I think is something that should be looked into, especially as we're entering a very important astrological event, which I'll get into in a little bit. But the concept of Satan being evil is sort of, I think it's a little played out, and I think it's a little naive for people who are into spiritual concepts to look at Satan as this sort of thing we have to avoid. It's all part of our journey, this Satan aspect, right? This sort of darkness that we have to go through in order to find light. And I think we can appreciate the goodness in our lives and the highest good more and strive towards a higher sense of self because of this darkness. And I think that's what this concept of Satan tries to teach us throughout our daily lives. Some of you might know it was Rosh Hashanah. It still is. It's for 10 days until Yom Kippur on Tuesday evening. But we had a sermon the other day at the end of our service on Rosh Hashanah on Monday, and our rabbi was talking a little bit about forgiveness, and he went on to say that the biggest figureheads, especially in the Bible, but you can apply this to anywhere, the people that we sort of look up to the most are generally people who are imperfect people. The perfect people in the Bible are sort of written off because they're not that important. If you look at Moses and his brother Aaron was a much more suitable candidate. If you think about a holy person, he was a very holy, like devoutly religious person. Moses was kind of like a little bit mediocre, had his own issues, was not really like that involved. And narratively speaking, he was chosen to be the one to fucking write the 10 Commandments, right? He was chosen to have that path. And these are people who are imperfect. And I think that's important to understand when talking about Satan as this concept of the angel of death as well, that the people who are struggling the people who are going through a lot of temptations and, sins, so to speak, are the people that are being led in a way by Satan, and that's in a way leading us down a path to where we reach a higher sense of self, reach a higher sense of good, so to speak. So this concept of Satan being evil, or we should avoid it, or we should try to cast off whatever Satan is kind of I think it's very naive to say things like that. I think that the concept of Satan being in our lives wherever we are is very important, and especially if you pay attention to astrology and astrological concepts, whether or not you believe in it or not. But Saturn, the planet Saturn, Satan, you can see the similarity in the name. That's what Satan can be ascribed to, is that specific planet is conjuncting with Pluto tonight at 11 p.m. in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. Capricorn is sort of known as the Satan astrological sign, which doesn't mean it's evil at all. It just means it's very rigid, very hardworking, very much like having to push through something, which I think is what Satan in that aspect tries to teach us. If you look at Jesus, for instance, which I'm not a Christian, so I'm not really an expert on, but he goes through this period of the 40 days and 40 nights of having to battle temptation. He goes on this path willingly, that he has to go through this huge metamorphosis. He has to go through this temptation and see sort of the paths that he could have chosen, which wouldn't have led to his highest good, but he needed that in order to build himself up into what he eventually became before he was crucified, so to speak. So this whole concept of Satan being evil, or even people who are like Satanist, who worship Satan as this entity, is also kind of weird. It's like just worshiping like just a very small segment of life, and the segment that no one really wants to, which I don't really understand. Like people who are like really Satanists, like people who are like actually like, I worship the devil, and the underworld and all this shit. You're basically like, you're worshiping someone who's going to make your life like hell, right? Which is something nobody wants, but sometimes we have to go through that anyway. But it just doesn't make real sense. Like if you're going through like a really shitty time, you kind of want some mercy in your life. You kind of want, okay, like please God, like help me out here. Like I don't want to fucking do this shit anymore, right? So, there's that aspect too, which is kind of like, I'm kind of against idolatry in any sense, but like it just on a logical level, like worshiping Satan is just kind of retarded. Like you're not really gonna get anything that you want. Like you don't pray to Satan to get what you want. You get the opposite, unless what you really want is like working really hard and like being really like impatient and things taking a long time, and like constantly being distracted and tempted by all these other outside forces and like bad things happening to you. Which again is another concept of Satan, is this hardship, right? The book of Job. If you've ever read that book, it's definitely one of the best books in the Bible. I would definitely check it out. But it's Satan who like has a conversation with God, and it's like, hey, this guy Job is like really committed. What happens if you just take away everything in his life, everything that makes him happy? You think he'd still be devoted to God and have faith in God? And it's really like an interesting story. It tests your faith. That's the part of Satan, is part of the lessons, that are you truly faithful? It's easy to be faithful when you have everything good happening to you and you're like, oh yes, life is great. But if you're living in shit and your life is miserable, it's really hard to pull yourself up and be like, no, I'm still faithful that things are going to work out in the end. And that's sort of what that story is about. And I think that's an important concept. when talking about Satan. So thinking about him in this he's evil, avoid him at all costs, is kind of dumb. Um, Having said that, I do believe that there are lower energies or entities or whatever you want to call it that leech off of people. I wouldn't call them like Satan though. They're just kind of like slugs or like parasites that just kind of like exist in that that realm up there that kind of leech off of you. I don't think they worship Satan, or maybe they do, but everything's under God. That's the whole idea. It's a God is everything and all. So, everything has its purpose. So, I don't know what else to say about that. This is definitely a lot more of a spiritual talk. Not many people will believe in it, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to. I'm not telling you what to believe. You can think I'm an idiot, but if you are a spiritual person and you're caught up in this aspect of demonizing these entities, or like Satan, or just even anyone in the world. I was talking about this last time about George Soros. George Soros is the devil. George Soros is Satan. We like to demonize people as well as being the all-encompassing aspect of evil, which, first of all, they're humans. They don't really have like, in terms of what Satan or God or the angels have their jobs, like humans here don't really have that kind of power. I mean, this is kind of something I'm not really an expert on, I guess. But yeah, just thinking, yeah, just don't. I just think it's dumb to think of Satan in this very black and white concept. It's there for a reason. And if you believe in astrology, like I said, think of it as Saturn. Saturn is there for a reason. It's Jupiter's like slightly smaller brother, basically, right? If you think about it, like Dragon Ball Z, like Jupiter's Goku, Saturn is Vegeta. Vegeta's just always pissed off, but it's always working hard. It always trying to catch itself up, but it'll never be as big as Jupiter, so to speak. But sometimes it gets a little power up from other planets. And what's happening now is Pluto is conjuncting with it in Capricorn. So you're getting these two powerful aspects that are happening in the world right now. And so, things are going to get pretty heavy soon. It's going to be pretty spooky for Halloween season. So people need to get ready, and people need to get prepared for this concept of demonization, which has been a theme for the past decade because of the aspects of Saturn and the aspects of Pluto, which has been in Capricorn for a while. So those are themes that are coming up, and they're going to become amplified. I think it's like 1 a.m. Eastern or 2 a.m., one of those times that Pluto is going direct. It's been in retrograde. So, yeah, I'm not, you don't have to be big into astrology to, like, understand that or whatever, but, you can just look outside, look at the news, see how much demonization, see how much shit is going on, and how much hardship is going on. Bernie Sanders just had a fucking artery explode or something, like, take it easy, like, don't get stressed out, because you gotta keep your health up, even if you don't believe in any of the spiritual shit. You just gotta, shit is happening, whether or not you believe in the astrology or in the religious stuff. Just try to chill out, because you can't make tough decisions if you're fucking stressed out and worried about everything, and it's horrible for your health. Bernie Sanders is happening. Donald Trump, it's probably gonna happen to him in a couple months. So for all the left-leaning people out there that are sad about Bernie Sanders, or like Donald Trump is probably gonna be next, like he doesn't, like, you look in his eyes, it's just like the stress is intense, everyone's really stressed out and they need to chill. Just chill the fuck out. So, anyway, that's all I have to say. Satan isn't evil. Satan is life. And you just got to deal with it. All right? Peace out.